mind praying for us?
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, God, we come tonight to give thanks to your holy and righteous name. We thank you for this day. We thank you for all the many blessings that you shed upon us. God, we ask tonight blessings upon our schools, upon our superintendent, upon our school board, upon our parents and teachers. We ask God that you continue to give us safety, all that we do. And God, we ask that as we move forward to move our children to the next level in their lives, that God, you will give us wisdom and knowledge. And Father, I ask tonight that everything be done to your honor and your glory, that we conduct the business according to your will. We thank you in the most powerful name we know. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Trustee Tenet, would you lead us in the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call this meeting to order at 6:01 in the H.J. McAllister Administration Building in the boardroom on October 18th, 2022. There is a quorum of trustees here with 6 present, with trustee West absent. This meeting has been posted according to code, and we are going to move on into the next item, our celebration of excellence. How are you, ma'am? I'm good.
We will be starting with our high school students this evening. We actually have 2 different awards, so I'll invite Principal Reyes to get started with those.
We have 3 different awards tonight. The first one is going to be the students that have met the TSI. We will have a large amount of them because they work so hard. They come on the weekends, they take the tutoring support that we provide for them. So we do have a large amount of them. We also have not recognized in the last 2 months. So I'm going to start calling the name. If they have passed the TSI, that means they're college and career ready. So they are high school students that are ready to take their college courses. And for the most part, they're already taking college classes at Bay City High School. Some of them might not be here today because they're already in college, which is another celebration. So Keda Bomer Look, Tyler Estrada, Alex Dela, Crystal Mendoza Vargas, Emily Solis, Alicey Maldonado, Janet Davis. Forgot to mention, some of them might not be here either because they have jobs. So they're doing an outstanding job and they're working as well. Raúl Ramírez, Giselle Calderón, Ayman Lopez, Michelle Espinosa, Piper Cannon, Mary Bryan, Alejandra Aldaco, Harlem Jones, Caleb Mankey, Yareli Ochoa, Isabella Press, Victoria Sliva, Ariana Brinkley. Jorge Montero. Myla Garcia. Jace DeWitt. Sierra Fernandez. Heriberto Mendoza. Alexis Monroy. Austin Beasley. Jesse Garza. Jackie Latani. Caitlin Massey. Lila Ochoa. Is school board members, if you don't mind taking a picture with this proposal.
Okay, we're gonna have you guys squeeze in and maybe make a second row.
So all the tiny ones, you don't come at the front.
Not too tough. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Great job, guys.
Celebrating all the students that cannot be here tonight, as everyone got a reminder that their commitments are so important as well as we will keep up with their high school career. Next, I want to recognize a group of students in our community that display the behaviors that we expect from our students at AC High School. I have a parent that called me with great news about how our high school students behave at home. And I couldn't wait but to call Dr. McCaslin and share the news, but the parent is here with us tonight, and I really think she can tell the story better than I can. So I'm gonna invite her to come forward and share with us.
Oh, I wasn't expecting to see. Oh, hi. How are you? Good to see you guys. They all call me Mama because they're always around. And we had a fire at my house. I was in the house and we had been sick with that notorious stomach virus for a few days. And so finally he was feeling good and said, let's just get some stuff done. And I was in the house getting some things done. And the boys were outside doing some yard work and getting ready to cook some burgers and things at night. And we ran in and said, Mom, something's popping. And I said, okay, you're right there. And so when I got outside, the electrical box was all on fire. And so the boys, one of the boys helped me to call 911. And the other boys grabbed the dog and myself and got us across the street to safety. And Kaden ran across to Speed Stop to grab a extinguisher. And by the time he got back, the police officers had just arrived with their extinguishers. And they were able to just really step up as young men. And so I just really greatly appreciated them. It was a very traumatic thing, but so grateful the house didn't burn down because of their actions. So wonderful young men. They are the brightest of our kids. And we have a really bright future with public school people. You know, they get a bad rap. This whole generation gets a bad rap. Often it's not what I see. What I see is young men that really do step up and they take their rightful place in our community. So very grateful. Here you go.
And I thank Ms. Miller for sharing that story. I really think she can say it better than I was going to be able to. But I'm going to invite the young men that were at her place that night, supporting her. And you are not going to be a certificate, you're going to be a medal because you are the heroes in our community and also represent what Bay City High School stands for. Jackson Plant. Hayden Bradford Ramos. Franklin Miller. Hannon Allen. Joey Gavos. Messina. By our board members, Ms. Miller and Ms. Tarrant, so you can please come and stand in our picture. These young men are not that serious. I'm not sure.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3.
The next award is very special. These students are in college grade classes. They take the AP exams at the end of their high advanced level courses. We have a huge number of students that have passed these exams. With the number 3, that means when they leave Bay City High School, they get up to 3 college hours. Along the way, I'm going to mention a few students that received their 5s. That means when they leave Bay City High School for that one course, they automatically get 6 college hours. So parents, that saves you a lot of money. And also the students don't have to repeat that course. But more importantly, the students are taking this exam and it shows that they are college and career ready and receiving credit for that. So when I call those students' names, this is a huge accomplishment for Bay City High School, for our community, and for your students. We also have a couple of students that are AP scholars. That means they have passed up to 3 exams in 1 year. So they are leaving, just by taking those tests, they are leaving Bay City High School with at least 9 college hours. So to say the least, I am very proud and very thankful for the parents for trusting us with what we do every day at Bay City High School. I have a huge list and I feel very honored to have a huge list. So I will start calling their names. Robert Lopez. And Robert Lopez is an AP scholar in college, so it's a celebration that he is not here also. Edith Rocha is also in college, AP scholar, that means he passed at least 3 exams, also in college already. Lynette Gilbert, AP in chemistry. Ryan Henstead, AP in chemistry and English 3. You have also a poster for your mom to put at her window. So braggy. Andrew Hinston. Michael Vargas, AP chemistry. We don't have to take chemistry in college. Kendra Former Love, AP in English 4. She is also already in college. Anaya O'Neill, AP in English 4. Diana Audite, AP Spanish. Antonio Asanza, AP in Spanish. Juan Baeza, AP in Spanish. Ernesto Camacho Figueroa, AP in Spanish. Diana Garcia, AP Spanish. Liliana Garcia, AP Spanish. Lisbeth Garcia, AP Spanish. Elizabeth Gobert, AP Spanish. Sydney Hudgens, AP Spanish. Citlali Jimenez, AP Spanish. Milagros Luna, AP Spanish. It's not here with us tonight because she's in college. Jair Luna Rubio, AP Spanish. Alexis Martinez, AP Spanish. Hernán Morales, AP Spanish. Diana Muñiz Reyes, AP Spanish. She also made it 5, I mean, she did 6 college hours. Mariela Muñoz, AP Spanish. Leslie Murillo, AP Spanish. Berenice Núñez, AP Spanish. Sandra Núñez, AP Spanish. Angel Ortiz, AP Spanish. Eduardo Ortiz, AP Spanish. Emily Reyes, AP Spanish. Jessica Rodriguez Guido, AP Spanish. Aileen Rodriguez. Maya Sanchez. Jesly Vargas Chapa. Samuel Vázquez. Andrea Vera. Raúl Zamora Muñoz. Bogdan Pacheco, and he is not with us anymore. He was a transfer student and also had an AP, passed AP in USA government. That is a huge accomplishment. And he had not been in the United States for a long time, so this shows the level of curriculum and rigor that our teachers teach at AC High School. Brandon Fernandez, AP exam in USA history. And last, Francisco Rodriguez, AP exam in USA history. Last, before we conclude, I want to thank the teachers for all their intentional preparation and work that they do for you all. Students, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing to honor the teachers for respect as they're obviously preparing you not just for high school but beyond. And parents, I want to thank you for all your support and all the times I went to phone call and asking for the support. Last, I want to thank the teachers and I want to thank our counselors and everybody that shows up to work on Saturdays and be able to provide us extra opportunities for our kids. That is all that we have for tonight. And board members and parents, if you'll please have a seat. Apologize, parents. I think this is a very large room. We just have a board members. My apologies. We'll probably do 2 rows for this group as well. We can have it. Thank you. On my little down to the front.
Before we take the picture, I'd like to say something real quick about these 2 groups. Ms. Reyes just mentioned coming up here on Saturdays and giving students opportunities. Just to give you an idea, not every school district in Texas offers the TSIA for their students. So the opportunity for students to take that test at Bay City ISD, we had about a participation rate of almost 90%. Statewide, the opportunity is about 60%. And so that speaks volumes to the commitment to come up here on Saturdays. 90% of our students had an opportunity, which is awesome. That's the sacrifice, way above the state. And the second, this group you see here in the stack of papers that's still there, out of 2 million test takers, almost 2 million of AP last year. This group right here scored in the top 22% of almost 2 million students. So it's quite an accomplishment. I just want to frame that. Outstanding work done by the staff and providing the opportunity as well as the performance. So I hope that boosts you guys because you're in a very elite group. That's really awesome.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Are welcome to stay, but it is okay to leave.
All right, well, I'm going to continue with the excellence. I actually have some ladies here that I want to introduce. First off, I wanted to say thank you for recognizing the Texas Human Resource Appreciation Day. We're recognizing our department. These ladies do an excellent job each and every day to service our staff members and our students here at the district. They work a lot of hours. I appreciate them more than you probably know, and so I do appreciate y'all recognizing it. So we're first going to start with Ms. Luana Hines. I don't know if y'all know her almost for over 30 years now. She has actually serviced multiple campuses. She does a great job for our campus. I'm so thankful to have her. She also helps service our transportation department. She monitors the buses in the morning times, works extra hours each and every day to help our students, our staff. So we do appreciate you. Next, please. And everybody knows the one. If you go out and love the one now, she's a great spot. Next is Ms. Kelly Guzek. Ms. Kelly actually just started with the district. Know a little bit about what each of them do. Ms. Luana is our human resource clerk, and Ms. Kelly is our human resource and benefit specialist. Ms. Kelly has a lot of years of experience within the teaching industry, so they're both a great asset for us. Ms. Elizabeth Rawlings is also part of our HR department. She was not able to make it today, but she helps with all of our federal funding. Huge asset too. I know I keep saying that, but they really are what makes this HR department go around. So I do appreciate both of them plus Ms. Elizabeth. So thank y'all for recognizing me today. Y'all want to come up here too?
And before we take this photo, I've got to call somebody out real quick. because we wanted to recognize Jordan as the team leader. She's such a great team leader. She said, no, we're not going to do that. So congratulations anyway.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, hold it for me, and one more. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, this next group of folks, it's the recognition month for principals, and we joke a lot about the jobs that they have, and I've often said, and to their staff, they have the toughest jobs in education, and I do believe it's tougher than the superintendent's job. I've done that high school principal's job. Many of you have different things. I've learned a whole bunch about elementary principalship as well. You're taking care of the front lines. You're taking care of our students every day. You're taking care of our parents every day. And no one, we talk about safety, all of those things I see you guys do. It's an honor to work with you. You do the hardest work imaginable. We appreciate you so much. No card or anything could ever thank you enough. But we have more in store, so stay tuned. It is your month. We've got some more things going. So I'll call your name, come forward, and then we'll pose for a picture as well. Ms. Wendell? I don't have them in any order, but Ms. Wendell's, of course, is Roberts, and we're going to take a picture also. Mr. Roll. Can you help us? Next, with the little bitties, we've got Cherry Elementary and Mrs. Howard. Pre-K and kindergarten, oh my goodness.
It's always a great day to Cherry Elementary. Thank you.
Next, a quick word, although I was never a principal at this level, I can say that I've heard if you even do 1 year, you get to go to heaven. That's junior high. And last but not least, we have the high school. Mrs. Reyes, please come forward to be recognized. Yeah,
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Hold it for me. Perfect. Thank you.
Not there yet. All right. Well, I love that part of our meeting, and I love that we get to not only hear about students and what students are doing, but also what our HR department and the feel on our principals as well. So that is such a treat, and I know that the work that is happening in Bay City ISD is far beyond what we can ever imagine. So thank y'all for what you're doing. Thank you, staff, for what you're doing with students. It is truly, truly amazing, and words cannot thank you enough. So with that, we're going to move on to audience with patrons and a public hearing. The board will hear from the public regarding superintendent's recommendations or names for the high school gymnasium. Do we have any, Danielle, do we have any signed up? All right. Yes, sir. No, I was asking Danielle, if we had anybody sign up for a public hearing or for audience with patrons. All right. Well, we will move into closed session. Personnel matters, if necessary, may be taken into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074 to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, resignations, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including contract recommendations for campus and district level administrators and teachers, and to go over the intruder detection audit report findings for Bay City High School. The time is 6:31, and we will move into closed session. get convened back into open session at 7:08. All right, moving down through the agenda, discuss and consider approval for hiring of contractual personnel. Is there a motion to be made?
Have a motion for approval of employment personnel.
Is there a second to the motion? All right, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion on the hiring of contractual personnel? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion passes 6-0. All right, moving on. Discuss and take possible action to name the high school gymnasium in accordance with the policy CW local. Is there a motion to be made?
Make a motion to consider take possible action to make the high school gymnasium in accordance with policy CW.
All right, is there a second to the motion, to trustee Tennant's motion? Okay, so we have a first and a second. Excuse me, a first and a second on the table, which now opens us up for discussion, and I'm going to pass the floor over to Dr. McCaslip for a minute, and he can update us on what our facilities committee came together and met, and the discussion that was had in there, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely, it was a great process. Thank you all for approving this process. It was timely. It was well done. We did have, as you know, from our last meeting, we established committees. So this was our first meeting of the facilities committee to review the information, review the nominations. It was a great conversation. Certainly one where there was no absence for staff deserving honor. And the question became this one, and moving forward, how can we, there was a discussion of even additional staff that need recognition as well for accomplishments. I won't mention particular areas of the building that were mentioned, or of buildings that was mentioned, but the question became, do we want to establish a method moving forward to recognize more staff members deserving, similar to, we discussed the concept of a Hall of Fame and a criteria to go with Hall of Fame to ensure that we have structure. We don't leave anyone out, and we don't have a situation where, you know, we miss someone, or even if the discussion was even historic, maybe someone who is no longer with the district, would we be open to a criteria to also recognize them and honor them in some way. So I did want to mention that was also discussed, and, you know, as part of the process was, this is a great idea to recognize staff, and certainly we have staff that's deserving, obviously, and we may want to consider how we do it moving forward to ensure if you have, let's say, a science teacher that needs to be recognized, what would that look like? If coaching another sport, what would that look like as far as the recognition and the criteria for that? So that was just a question I want to let y'all know that the committee was very open in discussing just how much they wanted to move forward with recognition, and also move forward with future recognition as well. I don't know if there's any other discussion or questions that I can entertain, or committee members could entertain on the topic. It was a great visit, great information, great feedback, really good process.
But I think that's a good discussion, because our staff do get pushed to the wayside when it comes to stuff like that. I know we have a Hall of Famers for athletes, but we never more staff, you know, and I think that my hat goes off to coaches, because that's what you do. But also in the classroom, that's what they do, and sometimes we overlook that person that is made a significant difference in that. So I think that's a great thing. Yeah, he said there's going to be a criteria which you will work on, bring back to us on.
Yes, ma'am. We in facilities committee, we talked about having a really good criteria to ensure that you know, we use the term Hall of Fame.
Okay.
So that the Hall of Fame criteria was at an expectation to where, like we've heard about, we've got staff that doesn't meet that stature. You know, I could share some of the conversation that I shared, but the criteria would need to be locally approved, because I'm sure every district would have a different way of doing it, and a different weight they would want to add to different things. In discussion, it's a number of years in the district. There's an indication, so that's usually your starting point, and then from there, you do need to grapple with criteria in the way of coaching. Of course, you have things like state championships and things of that nature. Priscilla mentioned as far as the classroom teacher, we may have to dig deep if we want to have that discussion and consider what the criteria is. You know, the two basic that I've seen used before is the commitment to the district for the teacher side of it. And obviously for the coaching side of it, there's certainly accolades that lie.
Session.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Clarify, are we saying that the facilities committee is not recommending naming a facility at this time after an individual, but going forward, looking at a way to recognize more people?
In part of an open discussion, that would be whatever we want to discuss here exactly. So yeah, I just wanted to open the floor to the discussion. And then if anyone else had similar questions, because that was kind of a new question that we did not, we hadn't covered a whole thing discussion. But in discussing with legal, it's like, oh, that's a significant thing we want to discuss. And you have a motion in a second. You can open it for discussion and just see what everyone thinks, but it's not everyone is on. So it's like, just like you said, right? Before entertaining a discussion and moving forward with how the board.
What was that?
Yeah, it was us
Trent.
and Marcus and
Okay.
Wes.
And I think that's pretty accurate share with Mark's. I mean, if you guys were there, but.
Yeah, I think the conversation we have a lot of employees, and when we opened it up, questions started coming in of, well, we have staff members that have done this that we need to honor because they deserve it, not because we need to, because they deserve it. And so how do we, as a board and as a district, honor those people to be able to show, thank you for what you've done, and show the significant impact that they've made on our community and our school district. And so that's how we landed in the discussion of, could it be something more of a Hall of Fame, something of that nature? And that's why we're bringing it back to you all, because we want to have a discussion. We want to have it between us sitting here at this table to be able to open it up and ask questions, because I think it is a big decision that needs to be discussed right here and figure out kind of where we want to head with it.
Listen, I'm always thinking about. I think that's an excellent idea, because this gives us a new opportunity. When we're talking about taking a facility and naming it after one person, then you have other that's here that you may think deserve that same thing. But then it comes to a point, when does it stop? Are we setting ourselves up to everybody that comes in? How many names are going to that place or that facility going to be named after? Because someone always thinks, whoever they bring up is deserving of that. But I am with more of a Hall of Famer than naming a facility after. For the first time, sometimes when people mention things, you never pay any attention to it until it's right there in front. For the first time, I'm not an advocate, number one. I'm not interested in it, number two. I used to always lie and tell that people my time got all this talent for me. I cannot even throw a ball from here to there, but I took pride in saying it. But I looked last night in the gymnasium, and I've never paid any attention to it. And I started looking at the semifinalists and all of the people that just brought back so many memories. And I thought, how can you go to a basketball game or football game and never recognize it? Because I'm not interested in it. But because it is now and we're faced with that, I did pay attention to that. And it was awesome to sit there and read the names and be able to reveal some of those same experience in going to a game and wanting to see those people come back and contribute to, Bay City. And that's to say nothing against anyone and all that they've done. Every one of us, especially Coach Nelson, is deserving of being recognized for all that he has brought to Bay City, and to our Black Cat family. But I laugh when I approach Coach Nelson, because if you know Coach Nelson, he doesn't change his spot for anyone. If he says it, he says it, and he's done it. And that was the most thing that I think out of our years of knowing one another, I've always admired. He's gonna tell you exactly what it is and move on. But he always said that, I put Bay City on the map. And I would laugh to myself and think, oh, Coach, we was on the map before we got here. You know, Bay City's always been on the map. And I've been really revisiting that. You brought a lot of notoriety to our little community. But last night, looking at it, there was a lot of names up there that has also brought a lot of notoriety to our community. So when does it stop? Do we go and do this, and then we say Bryce Turner? Bryce Turner has drawn lots of recognition. In a few more years down the road, we change our track name to Bryce Turner, or to, I didn't know they called Candy Jones Candy Jan. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. But she's also brought a lot. Do we rename our gym if that comes down? It's just those kind of things that I think once we started, either we're going to continue it or say it's a stopping point. And I just think that we need to think smarter and not harder and do what's right when we come to that. And like I say, you know, nothing, I cannot touch him. He's like an MC there, you can't touch him. And, but I would definitely have to consider that when I'm thinking and voting on it. How many more times are we going to be here with the same thing? And I just want to think smart. I think the Hall of Fame will cover it. I think he needs to be recognized. I would go for a plaque or something somewhere, but to name it, I would have to stand beside and say, you know, no, because I think we are asking something that we cannot do in the future. But we're going to be held accountable. That is system. We're going to be held accountable.
Is there anyone else that has any comments?
Question.
Yes, sir.
Would we have like multiple Hall of Fame? Would we have like
So that's,
a coach Hall of Fame,
So-
a teacher Hall of Fame, and a administrator Hall?
that's the discussion, and that is what I would like to ask Dr. McCaslin and his staff. Can we come up with some type, can we come up with a criteria, something that, to figure out how to do it and present it next board meeting to move forward on it? I don't think that's a decision that we can make right now, not knowing. I think it's too broad, but I do think that that is something that we did talk about at the facilities meeting. Is, do we do general, do we do very specific, do we per camp, like all of the questions came up. So I think giving him some time.
The line of questions, and you can correct me, the line of discussion was, for the coaching side of it, there are some superlatives there that are very measurable and very worth the Hall of Fame recognition. And then with teachers, we would want to, I shared some criteria that I've seen in other districts, the district I'm coming from, but teachers doesn't have the same criteria.
In our Hall of Fame is for athletes, and they're already in place. Then they cover coaches and no.
It does not. So we have a alumni, distinguished alumni, and then we have an athletic. I don't remember the exact name, that we honored last year, but I think from what I understand, it's just, students that have done something, attended Bay City and then did something while they were attending here. So there's nothing specifically for staff. Where we're lacking is the staff aspect. And so looking at it from that approach of, do we break it down? How do we do that? But I don't know. I would rather Dr. McCaslin have some something to present and something to report to show us, hey, this is what we can do, this is how we can do it, and then go from there.
If we admit so many every year, would it be like a competitive process? You admit 50 in
Right.
1 year and then one every year after that, or would
Right.
you just take the 3 most qualified
We
every
talked
year?
about
and-
that,
Yeah.
and I think, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say the discussion about, also, there was a positive discussion for retroactive. We have people who did the service, and they were here, they're no longer working in the district, but they earned it, maybe they're retired, so maybe that initial class could be bigger,
Larger,
it could be. And again, that would, a lot of that would be on the criteria and the level that we would require on, and that would probably drive. Again, that criteria would be critical as to the license.
So are you planning to come with a mock-up of the potential criteria options and
The committee, I'm sorry,
logistics of where it might be placed and those kind of things?
yes, the committee, when we met, said it is important that these recognitions take place and as soon as possible. So I will, the board's wishes I have it at the next meeting.
Any other questions or comments? All right, sorry, go ahead.
Thanks, Sharon. So
Yes.
We're fixing to vote on this, before the Hall of Fame.
But just a
No,
point of clarification, we didn't actually make a real motion, it just says discuss and take possible action, which,
well, we had to open up the floor.
yeah.
So when we spoke with Morgan, we have to open up the floor, so we had to make a motion to either move on this or
So
not.
that's a discussion.
To have a
Motion was
discussion
to discuss and now we're discussing. it.
Possibly take that.
and possibly take action.
So the motion. could be-
Okay.
So I think what needs to happen is we need to decide as a board, do we want to move forward with looking into a Hall of Fame and ask Dr. McCaslin and his staff to bring us some criteria, what that would look like for our November board meeting? And if that's the case, then naming the gymnasium would be, it would remain not named, their Bay City High School Gymnasium, I'm not sure the exact name at this moment off the top of my head. And then we would just move that into the people that were nominated into a Hall of Fame if they're in that criteria. And that would be either we could put that into board policy, which would then take 3 readings, or we could do it differently to where it doesn't need board action to be able to induct people into the Hall of Fame.
CW regulation, which does not require board approval. Master, if that's what you want to do. So, it's a good issue. Didn't really want to tie hands with it as a regulation. It's flexible, yet we found in our board policy, not board policy, board regulations, guidelines for everything that it said in CW. Regulation, related to facilities or a different regulation, depending on what it. Again, I don't know what y'all's wishes are, but if it would involve facilities, legal, everything, how to do it right. That happens to the best of y'all's wishes. And again, your wishes would be all of that. Would be done.
Saying CW.
CW. Yes, it's on the agenda. That's for the policy. It's for naming facilities in general. So it then becomes a discussion of if we're moving the Hall of Fame route, do we want it to be a true policy in our local policy, or do we want it to be not where it doesn't have to be board approved to move in that manner?
Currently, it's not.
Right.
Distinguish that.
I would like to keep that. I just think that that's easier for people to read. In those states, then they have to come to the board, right?
Correct.
I would much rather it be that way, rather than coming back to the board. That would be on the facilities for me. So that, yeah, it's not something that.
That way it doesn't need board approval. Okay. Does anyone have any further discussion?
I was confused with the motion we're voting on, because we made a motion to discuss and
Take possible action.
possible action.
Yes, is the motion. So do we want to name the gym tonight or not? This one.
Okay, that's what's on the floor, yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
that's what's on.
not to name it a certain thing, but just to name
To
it in
name the
general.
gym in general.
Okay,
So we're not, there is no motion to be made to name it in general. It's either do we want to name it or do we not want to name it? And if we don't want to name it, then we need to direct Dr. McHaslett, which we have to move forward with coming up with criteria for all of them. For staff.
and it was council's, not decision or recommendation, but their council that if we named it, we would be opening the door to potentially, why don't you name it this, or why doesn't this name that?
It was,
Is that what you're saying? Somebody mentioned that.
It was just a discussion.
Discussion.
Yeah,
Yes.
it
Wasn't a recommendation, it was a discussion.
yeah, it was just discussion.
But a Hall of Fame would allow us to cover everybody who's
More
who's
people
qualified.
who are qualified and who meet the criteria, whatever that criteria may be, whether it's just years or if we tack things on it, they need certain years and I think the criteria is flexible and to whatever we would like it to be. And I think Dr. Knapp, we talked about that, the criteria a little bit, and there was nothing, we never leaned on anything in the facilities committee. And really, the committees are intended to come in and be able to make a recommendation and have a real discussion in depth and ask a lot of questions, and then bring it to you all like we have this evening. Instead of having to spend hours in a board meeting once a month, trying to hash through things and ask all the questions and then go back and get answers and come back. So it's trying to just take out some of that to make our board meetings more efficient.
Sure. No, I understand
Yeah.
that. And I'm
So-
wrapping my head around it now.
Yes.
And it's the committee's recommendation that I'm Hall of Fame.
Yes. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we will move forward with a vote to take action on naming the high school gymnasium in accordance with policy CW local. All right, all in favor of that, say aye. Opposed?
No.
No. All right, motion does not pass 6-0. So in that conversation, we have directed Dr. McHaslett to come up with criteria for us to present at our next board meeting to what a Hall of Fame will look like.
The direction that it'll be staff.
Staff, it is staff,
Completed.
yes.
Once the board approves the policy, or not
Yes.
the policy, but the.
The feedback I got from the committee is that, yes, that must be honored ASAP. And so that was the discussion, of do we make it policy or not? But either way, in November, I would have that for either facilities, and if you consider the criteria, I can bring it as a report as well, whatever we're comfortable with. A lot of conversations with what we are going to come forward, is just that we're going to come forward on the process. We discussed the process, I sent y'all the process before we ever started on CW. It would be the same thing, to move collaboratively, and see about recognizing as many people as possible in a way that can be sustained.
Great. All right, moving on to LSG. We are going to hear about our LSG report and go over lots of things within LSG.
Good evening, trustees.
Good evening, how are you?
Doing good.
Good.
I'm glad to be here. And I
Yes,
want to preface before I start, I love coming here and hearing all your celebrations. It's wonderful to see the accomplishments of your students and have you honor that and celebrate that. And then I want to turn to my fellow principals. I was a principal for 28 years. Happy Principals Month. You are so deserving, and I appreciate that you honored them tonight. They were so excited when they opened their cards. Y'all didn't get to see that. And, they deserve that. So without further ado, I'll get started. I want to also celebrate last month at our last board meeting, you spent a total of 40 minutes on student outcomes, which came out to 59.7% of the time. So 60% of your time on student outcomes is amazing. And we want to continue to do that. Tonight, Marissa, I think you're going to help.
Lisa's first.
Oh, Lisa's first. Okay, help share our goal measure, progress measures.
Evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm even better because Selena has extra pair of glasses, so I can't. I'm hearing there are a lot of people over 41. So, okay, I am Lisa Howard. I am principal at Cherry Elementary. Super excited here now. But just can't tell you now how excited I am to be in this city and be a Black Cat. So this is my first time to present to you guys. I saw the model that Estella did last month, so I'm just gonna follow that and explain to you where we are at Cherry with our kindergartners, or what we measure for LSG. In goal 1.1, which is students who are meeting at or above in-class reading assessment. Our benchmark, our initial baseline is 18%. That's what we scored when we did our beginning of the year assessment. So with a 20% growth measure, that puts us at 38% at the end of the year, meeting or exceeding benchmark. Now, in class reading, there are 4 levels. There is an above and there is a meets. If you equate it to the star, it's like you've got your kiddos that are not mastered, and then you got your kiddos that are approaches, which is star. That means that doesn't mean they're at grade level, but it means that they're hearing it and it's okay to pass. It's just not, where we need them to be. But we took a credit for them. You have your kiddos that are at grade level and above grade level. That's your meets and your masters. In class reading, we do have 4 levels. We have an above grade level and a meets benchmark. So those 2 are what combine to give us our 18% right here. And I want to tell you that because the math is a little bit different. So when we look at the breakdown, overall, we had 18% of our students who scored in the top 2 levels. The ethnicities, our African American students were 18%, Hispanic 17%, our white children 20%, economically disadvantaged 19%. Special education, we had about 5%. I did have our severe and profound test in class. I had every kindergartner that was able to respond verbally tested this. So that did bring in even our students who have severe cognitive disabilities. My thought on that, as a former director of special education, I want to see growth there too. So if we don't measure them, we can't see it. So obviously that did bring that down a little bit. I'm okay with that though, because we have a baseline that we can grow from. And then our English language learners scored at 6%. So in looking at that, in the at or above, we actually had 49 students fall in that area. The below, which is that just not quite there, just barely missing the mark, we had 62 students, and our well below, which is where we need to pour in and do some intervention, we had 157 students there. So do you have any questions on this? This is not beautiful data, but it is our starting point. We do have a lot of students who are attending school for the first time. And we are in progress monitoring and seeing some great growth in letter sounds and quantity recognition, which is something that was missing when we took this first assessment in September.
So what does your interventions look like?
So we have pull-out interventions for tier 3. Those just started within the past month. But then we have some small group interventions going on in the classroom. A lot of what we were doing for the month of September is regulating. We have to get kids ready to be at school. And so once they start regulating, they're able to handle sitting in a classroom and working with small groups, working with the teachers, then we see them start to take off. And so that's why we are seeing quite a bit of growth already between September and October, just because we have kids that are starting to normalize in the environment there. Have any questions about the reading?
This is kinder.
This is kinder, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Pre-K, what do you do?
So pre-K, you can pull that sheet real quick. Pre-K, we do CLI Engage, and it is scored a little differently. Pre-K for CLI Engage has a rapid vocabulary. All of the reading assessment part is timed and it is quick.
So if they can't identify the letter of the sound very quickly, it moves on, and it just doesn't give them credit for it. There is some vocabulary where they're showing a picture, they have to call the picture correctly. So if they're showing a broom and they call it a mop, that doesn't give them credit. They have to name it, exactly as it is. Some of the pictures are really, what I've seen, some are not real appropriate. They're not things that, not to the equivalent of showing them a typewriter and expecting them to have to make a typewriter, but some of them are a little bit dated. Or a little bit territorial, being in the Gulf Coast area. Some of the things that they might see in the pictures are may not be as appropriate to someone who lives that far.
Okay, so you're saying that if you see a wrench, and you say it's a tool.
Oh,
Is
right.
that a shop? Yes, do you not give them credit for that?
Yeah, call it
They have
credit.
to call.
Yes, ma'am. So, but I will tell you that even with our CLI gauge on the rapid vocabulary, there are 4 categories on there as well. One of them means that they're scoring so far outside the norm that there's not a score for them. Because this is really geared for, there's a 3-year-old section and a 4-year-old section for pre-K. If they're scoring well below the 3-year-old, so you have to think 24 months or below with the vocabulary, that would be well outside of the range. We did not have anyone score there. There's a monitor range. That means that they're scoring at approaching the previous year's level. So for instance, our pre-K are 4 years old. If they were scoring at approaching a 3-year-old level, so basically 24 to 36 month vocabulary range, they were scoring in monitors. We did not have any score there. All of our students scored between a 3 and 4 or above range. So we had 53% that came in on track, right where we would want to be. And we had 47% that came in below, which those are the ones that we're working with. So a lot of vocabulary issues. But a lot of that, as we know, goes with vocabulary spoken at home as well. So we really got to just give them not just print rich, we got to give them a language rich environment and do a lot of talking and a lot of exposure. So thank you for asking that. I will tell you that we have 2 separate tests as well. Our bilingual students take a bilingual CLI engaged test. And in the bilingual class, we have 2 classes, 33 students, I think right now. We just had a couple more students who tested again. And we were at 63% on track, 27% that were just slightly behind. Any other questions about the reading portion? I'm going to go ahead and flip to the map. These scores were a little alarming to me. And so I looked backwards to see where scores have been in the past. For kindergarten, we had 4% of our students come in. Now in math, there are only 3 levels. There is just if you didn't get it, you're almost there or you got it. We have 4% of our kids that got it. We have, that's 12 students, by the way. We have 166 that are in the yellow. That means that they need intervention, they're almost there. We have 89 students who are in the red, who need some pretty serious intervention in math. What we realize is that we have a lot of students who, again, there's a time component to this. And so if someone is processing, they're counting. So this is recognition. You see 5 dots up there, and they're in the shape of what you'll see on the domino. You should know that's 5. Not everyone processes that quickly. So what we saw is that we had a lot of just like numeral recognition that was not there. Ooh, I think I just did something. We had some quantity recognition that was not there. So those are areas that I don't know how to do that.
Just click X.
Click X. Sorry, I can't see. I'm gonna see the video. That's how special I am. So we had we do see our deficits there. Again, this is, we have a lot of kids who are due. But that was a little more alarming to see that numbers, which typically you would think numbers are a little easier than letters, because They're, you know, you count, that's just what you do, when you go to the grocery store, you count how many things are in the basket. These things just aren't happening with our parents, with our families. So we know we have our work cut out for us. We do have some parent nights coming up very soon, and our parent night is gonna focus on, games with your kids. This is gonna be family day night. So we're gonna have some reading games and some math games, some takeaways that they can take home and continue to work with their kids at home to develop these skills. So in this one, you can see that our all was 4%. Our African American students were 5%, Hispanic 4%, white 2%, economically disadvantaged 4%, special education 0%, and English language learners 7%. A lot of the problem here on special education is processing speed and the speed in which the test has to be taken. So that would account for that. Now, Ms. Robinson, for the pre-K section of equivalent CLI Engage, we do have a math component to that as well. And in math for our English testers, we have 69% score where they need to be, on track, and 21% scored where they need some intervention. Again, in our bilingual test and our Spanish test, we had 70% and 30%, so they score slightly higher. But that's kind of where we are on that. Yes.
I know you haven't been here as we went through COVID, but do you find that next year is going to be better since you have the pre-Ks now, that as they go into kindergarten next year, that you'll be able to have a baseline that is established above 4 because you had them the year before?
That is a very good question. I cannot speak to what has happened in the past, but I can tell you that we are targeting our curriculum. We are targeting, when we meet with PLCs is what we call them, professional learning teams. We meet with them regularly. My instructional coach is fantastic. She is doing a great job. She is in those classrooms. We are modeling lessons. I am modeling lessons for them so that we can bring this back. Now, part of our curriculum, we know that we use Fueling Brains. Fueling Brains works on self-regulation to begin with. That is where we start. And then folds in the academic piece once the child has regulated. I am looking long and hard at our process at Cherry to make sure that what we are doing is what's right for kids. Because self-regulation absolutely has to be there, but we have got to be teaching them throughout the entire process. And so I'm going to answer that affirmatively. We will be in a better position next year. We do have some things to contend with this year that are already in place that we are going to continue through the year and see how we go. But I don't just expect, we will be in a better place next year. We will have our pre-K more prepared. Now, future years beyond that, I guarantee you, we will see incremental increases in that. Even with our kindergartners that are coming in, we're thinking boot camps, we're thinking readiness camps before school starts, something that we can do to get them. What we saw is our kids who had been in school were quite a bit more regulated. We had some hiccups, we had some anomalies. But the ones who were coming up from pre-K had a knowledge of what it looked like to be in a structured setting. Our kiddos that we got that were kindergarten, 5 years old, and are expected to know their letters and sounds in September and don't, but they've never been in a structured setting, this is chaos for them. They are not used to being in a classroom with 24 kids and one teacher. They are not used to having to sit in a chair or on a rug or whatever that looks like. So having some kind of boot camp for them that is just a readiness camp for kindergarten to help them. So these are all things that we're looking at, just how, as we progress this year, how can we better prepare our students for the first day of school next year?
That brings up the question is, how many of our students is kindergarten in their first year of school? Are they required to enroll pre-K? And if they enroll pre-K, if we turn them down, that we not have enough, right?
You have to qualify for that. So you're not going to do all the students that would be.
Are there districts that open that up to everybody? Is that something we could look forward to, like a 5-year plan?
In some situations, the answer is no, but also you can do You can do different things. Currently, we offer some employee incentive to join pre-K. It also helps with your inclusive environment because a significant number of your pre-K students will be special needs students, so you want to have inclusive environments. So we are offering it to employees. There's also, I believe the catchphrase, but there's tuition-based pre-K. And so that is something we could entertain as a tuition-based pre-K. For those students that wouldn't qualify, that is something that happens in districts. And we can want to do that.
So yes, and as of right now, we have around 270 kinder students and around 160 to 170, no, 270 pre-K students. We are looking at opening up classrooms in the remaining classrooms that we have available on site. And when we do, we're going to have to find some solutions for our speech services and such because we are at capacity.
Right.
But we do have 24 students in a classroom right now, which is tough. But you know, we're making it work. But to speak to your point, you know, if we look at it right now, if everyone who was 4 was to enroll in Bay City ISD, John Sherry Elementary would have to have a complete suite added because we have no room to make people.
I would say by percentage, we're probably a higher enrollment than by percentage, not by size of district, because we do have that important basically have a higher population.
And to answer Jenny's question about if you thought that the pandemic played a part in it, yes, it did. And yes, we were seeing it. And yes, when you're sitting in a classroom with 4-year-olds, it is very challenging. As I sit in the classroom every day with 22. And most of them, if they were tagged earlier, we had gotten them in pre-K 3. Some of these challenges wouldn't be this tough. But I want you to tell your staff, when it comes to kinder, as like at your second round of testing, you are going to see an amazing growth. And I saw mine from September to October, not giving the CLI, but we had to do our own testing for report cards. And I mean, they really socks off of it. And where I would thought they would have never gotten to that point. And so I think it really is, and I'm not just saying it, just said I had kinder last year. And when we did it the first of the year, oh my God. But when we did that second round of testing, they sued it. So it's that being in that classroom, seeing it, hearing it, and repeating day in and day out. They are really digesting the information. Although you see them climbing the walls, crawling on the floors, doing everything, they are digesting the information.
Right. And I will tell you, we have the most amazing staff at Sherry Elementary. They come to school every day with smiles on their faces, loving kids, loving what they do. This campus has endured 4 principals in 4 years and 4 sets of expectations that keep changing. And they have been through the ringer and they stuck with it because they love what they do. They love kids. They very easily could have gone to another campus in Bay City that had more stability. They chose to stay with early childhood because that's where their love is. And they show it every day. They are quite phenomenal. And that is one of the biggest blessings here in Bay City is the team that I am privileged to work with.
Just everybody needs to understand that we don't go to work for the money.
Yeah.
We go because we love it. And it is showing. I see it. I hear my babies come home and talk about it. They are enjoying school and they enjoy that environment.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
Something else.
To add a little light to the process, as far as HB3 goes, you see it on page 1, look at those dates on page 3. When you look at those are all August dates because that's all summative data. The difference that you're being presented as an LFG district and a proactive and transparent district is when you flip the page and you look at 141, you see the dates as being October 22nd, March 23rd, June 23rd, and 23rd, and you know that it's formative. And so not many folks are putting that out there. Normally you get this report that says, here's the sum and here's how it turned out. And so, yeah, there's some numbers there that are obviously concerning and you're all over it, but it's complete transparency in that we're going to be bringing that to you throughout the year. That's a great process. So I just wanted to mention that. And another thing you mentioned in there, these things are from the classroom level up. We talked about fueling brains. And I think I can say with confidence that if fueling brains, that, we're open to everything. But programs have to improve those things, and I think that's what we're talking about. We're gonna watch the data closely now that we have Fidelity. I was in that meeting. It was a great meeting, and Mr. Townsend was there. We're not married to programs. We're married to results.
Exactly.
So I think that's kind of what we're all, at least the three of us in here. That's what we discussed. Is it's got to work on these, and so we'll be watching the program very closely.
Well, this formative assessment process allows for that. We're going to be looking at the curriculum as you go, seeing where the gaps are, and how do you feel? What do you use to do so?
So our goal then, as it stands, over in class math, is a goal of 24%. I can tell you that as a campus principal, I'm not satisfied with that goal. I do know that if we look back at August of 22, 25% was early English. This is slightly below that. However, I plan for us to exceed that goal. Just because we need to have them ready for Marissa. And if we send out 25% of our kids that know their letters and sounds and that's it, then she's gonna struggle next year. So we're gonna be working our tails off, getting these kids where they need to be by the end of the year, knowing that a lot of the growth will come in the spring. This is still a lot of regulation. And once they achieve that, we do see the growth a lot. But Marissa, don't fear. We got it.
Thank you so much.
Jeff, listen what you said last night. You were worried again.
So that is our, yes, if you see our hashtag on Facebook, our chant is, we say, oh gosh, no, you said, who builds the Black Hat legacy? Sherry Black Hats, legacy. And I'm gonna tell you, I have got legacy makers at my campus. We spotlight them every week because they are all doing everything it takes to start these little legacies so that when they get up to Estella's campus, they are ready to ride off in the sunset and make Bay City proud. Not just Bay City guys, but Bay City, the city, just to shine a light on the rest of, like the young men tonight that were honored, how awesome is that? But, yes, thank you, Ms. Ross.
I know
Yes.
that because I was congratulating for this last year on the scores, and she said, well, of course, we had nothing to do with that this year. Jimmy Holmes, and basically I said, this is where it begins. If we don't catch them now, it's not gonna be what you.
That's exactly right.
So it starts there. So yes, I celebrated. I was loud, I was screaming because I know it starts with y'all.
And we have a lot of alignment meetings already going on between the elementary campuses to make sure that we are working toward our household three goals. We're looking at our phonics programming and what we need to look at there so that we are all supported with it. And again, I love Dr. McCaslett will say he's not married to programs. So if there's something that needs to change, we're looking at what needs to happen to match our students so that we can grow and we can be successful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, first I have to tell y'all, these two ladies back here are my right hand. I mean, they do so much. They just came in from Austin. They've been at an AP conference and they're here to support me. So it just speaks volumes of their leadership and all the wonderful things that they're doing to help us start what we are. So thank you, Ms. Alvin started. Good evening. So the first one we're going to look at is 1.2, which is our first grade students for reading. And so I'll tell you, looking at this data compared to this year and last year, there's not a big difference. It's almost the same starting point that we had last year. So in 1.2, our baseline is 26% of all of our students are in the meets category. So when we start looking
had the failing approaches. For failing, we have 50%, approaches 46. So our goal is to shift all of those students up and also to pull more students to our masters, because we have to make sure the shift is going all the way across the board and not just our tier 3, tier 2. We want to get everyone to tier 1. And so some of the things like you said, we're talking about phonics. Trustee Robinson, you'll be appreciative of this, but Dr. McHaislip and Mr. Townsend have been challenging us to find a new program for phonics, phonics awareness. And as a teacher, one thing that I really hate is when they said, hey, this is what you're gonna do, here you go, and you roll it out. We are very lucky, Mr. Kroll's wife is an instructional coach in a different district, and so we're going to watch teachers implement it and get their feedback and get their justification for being sold to us by a salesperson. So we're very excited that all 3 elementaries will be going. We're taking teachers. I don't even plan on taking my team leaders. I plan on taking other teachers because I know my team leaders can roll it out. I need to make sure my other teachers are comfortable with it, feel like it's something that is feasible for them in the classroom as well. So we are definitely working together. So I'm just really proud that they're letting us take our teachers and talk to them, because the last thing we want is just to give them another thing on their plate that they haven't bought into. So with our reading, I made just a quick little, it's pretty much things that we've been doing, but what we're going to do to improve. And so the first thing is definitely the daily intervention. So intervention is something that we do 4 days a week, 2 days of reading, 2 days of math. Mrs. Gardner works really hard with our interventionist, Mrs. Bronick, and so they make all of our groups. Like I told y'all, the PE teacher has a group, the aide has a group, the music teacher has a group. It's 100% buy-in, and we want us to make sure that we're moving our students in the right direction. Our students already started the data folders. Those of you that have been on campus before, or when TA Commissioner Mike Rath came, it was a huge highlight that our kids in first grade can read their data and explain their data. So every teacher already has data folders on every single student, so the students track, not the teachers. Our data walls was one of my goals from the Effective Schools Framework, and with Patty's help and all the teachers wrote all of their data on magnets, and the teachers placed their data on the board. So we have 2 whiteboards in our PLT room, and these teachers are going to be able to move those kids to the different categories when we do middle of the year testing. So the teachers have 100% buy-in and support, and those are their babies. Another thing is just unpacking the teats. It's another thing with Region 3, we've been working with our coach Lynn. She comes on this every Thursday, and we're just really going through those teats and unpacking them, because we do have teachers that come to us that are alternatively certified, so we need to make sure that we're coaching and supporting them in every aspect. So that's a big initiative. Progress monitoring, our teachers will progress monitor after 9 days of intervention. So they have intervention for 9 days, and then on the 10th day, they get a progress monitoring. And then we do have our chatting meetings that will go over how the students are doing. The students are also monitoring their progress in the classroom as well. So the data is in the students' hands. They understand it, and they're working hard. One of the big things, Mr. Townsend met with us with Miss Townsend, not Miss J.D. Townsend, our district coach, on our STAR redesign questions. We're starting it at 1st and 2nd grade. Our kids are taking all of their CBAs online. We want them to be ready for Mr. Kroll, and they have to be prepared in 1st and 2nd grade. So all of our CBAs have now been realigned to those STAR questions, and we're not just rolling it out to the teachers. Patty's presenting in the PLTs to the teachers. The teachers have buy-in and support of what those questions look like. So they have open-ended questions in 1st grade that we're already starting to make sure they're prepared for the 5th grade test. Every teacher has to meet with the parent at the beginning of the year. Every parent needs to know exactly where their child is. It's a face-to-face conference, no exceptions. And then definitely just the teacher coaching focused on instruction. That's another initiative with Region 3 that we've been getting support. And so it's just different coaching cycles. And then the tutoring, every teacher has to tutor 2 days a week after school. It's a non-negotiable for our campus, and we can start that on Monday. So we're already starting the rollout process. And so 2 days a week they will tutor. And then just the differentiated instruction. That's another thing that Patty works really hard with our teachers, models and everything, is just making sure that we have instructional groups 5 days a week. And so that's another thing on our walkthroughs. And when we send out like our Sunday memo, we'll tell them this week we're definitely coming in, and that's what we're truly looking at this. So give them different ideas and different tools for those small groups. Patty has a wealth of different things in her room that they can come take, especially shopping at Walmart. And then luckily, we do have the ESF grant, we have our title funds that our district has always supported us to get our teachers whatever they need. So that reading goal is going to increase. If you remember last year, it increased by significant amounts. So yes, there is a 20% increase on there. I told my teachers at PLT that I want that 20% by our January, middle of the year, even though it's for end, so we expect to see a lot of growth there. Just remember that middle of the year testing window, it is a higher leverage of the test. It is much harder than from the middle of the year to the end of the year, and the amount in order to get all the different categories. And so, any questions about, oh, and I do want to also tell you, Mr. Robinson, I've heard you talked a lot about asking about the African American population. Okay, so we have this tip. It's not because we're a targeted school, it's part of the grant that we have. So we write a tip, even though none of us are in that, but it was for the grant. And so one of my action plans is to focus on African Americans and seeing how we can help make sure we improve their scores. So. Listen, and so then on, any questions on the first grade? Yes.
In those Dakota books, I tried this out. The teachers email what my Callie needs. And by the way, thank you. She's loving school. She didn't even come home and tell me every single thing that she's done all that. And that's what we wish and wanted for. If y'all don't know my cat, she actually made herself sick, the thought of school. Now she loves it. So thank you for that. But I didn't get a list of things that was needed, and I tried to do exactly like the teacher said. But when you take a kid like Callie, and I'm not bragging, she's very, very bright, very bright. And you give me these things that she needs to do, and I try to do them within the Dakota books. I could give her some being it was a lot of stuff. But Callie felt behind. Once I took her to a higher level of reading, she understood. So my question to you is that when you get those kids that are ready at the beginning of school, are we holding them back until, are you meeting them where they are?
No, we're definitely meeting them where they are. We basically have like a number that we look at. And this is where we've given our teachers a lot more autonomy this year, that if more than 60% of the, for example, I'm just going to throw this, if we're working on, I'm using money and the unit is supposed to be for 15 days, and you already see on day one that over 60% of your students already mastered it, then we're not going to stick with that team. We're going to make it rigor. We're going to make it hard. We're going to take it up another level. We're not going to just water it down the whole 15 days just to get through it. We're going to just keep intensifying that instruction. So that we need 3 groups are 100% intentional. She is working with students of her ability wherever she's at, and we're meeting what their needs to take it on. Any other questions for first grade? All right, well, second grade is going to be very similar. So second grade, we had 33% in our meets, and so we do want to make sure that we increase that to at least 30. And just to let you know, the test is harder. It is more rigorous. So last year, at the end of first grade, these students were able, 70% of these students were able to read. And so our teachers are even saying that this year is a different year. I'm going to apologize to Mr. Cole all the time for third grade. Those third grade babies are the year that COVID shut us down. Those babies have struggled every single year. We did intervention, we did tutorials, we offered summer school teaching. Those kids continue to struggle and are going to struggle behaviorally, academically. And so those are the kids that are going to need just the most. So I promise you moving forward, these teachers, just hearing them and saying how different this year, it's a good feeling, even though we got to still be able to support Mr. Carl in every way that we can. So for that reading goal, we will get to that in grade. And I hope to get to there at Christmas, but for sure by the end of the year. Okay, from math 2.2. You'll see this one, we came in at 15%. And like Ms. Howard said, it was a little different because there's only 3 different categories in this one. So we actually had 65% of approaches. So We just need to move those kids up. And last year, we exceeded this. Miss Allen was the team leader last year of first grade math, and they blew it out of the water. And so we'll do the same again this year. And just hearing those teachers in second grade say, oh my goodness, you know, these kids are coming so much higher. It's just a lot of crazy kudos to what the teachers are doing, and then all the different interventions and tutorials. So while this score seems low, we have no doubt we'll master that for sure. Any questions on that? On the second grade, it looks like Cherry's up, Cherry Elementary. However, these kids, it's different. I mean, the time and everything, the beginning of the year test is always hard because they're getting used to it. They progress monitor, like I said, every 9 days, they have interventions. If they have progress monitoring, they're being tested and asked at progress monitoring the same way they are on the test, so they become more familiar with it. So beginning of the year, the kids are still nervous. We start testing. It was that second week of school that we started testing because we wanted to get them fresh. We wanted to see where they're at. So we'll definitely see a lot of improvement in the second grade math as well. Any questions?
Good, that's great. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for the work that you're doing on your campuses. It's not going noticed. It is a lot, it is hard work. And I know that LSG coming into it last year, I was thinking about this the other day, that this is our going into our first full year because we didn't start looking at goals until maybe November of last year with LSG. And so being able to look at the calendar and plan it out like we did over the summer. So nothing but up from here. So thank y'all for what you're doing on your campuses. It's wonderful.
You have incredible leaders sitting here that are really intentional in what they're doing. It's so obvious that they're using this formative assessment data to set goals and to make curricular changes, and their intervention pieces are spot on. So very excited to hear the progress that they're going to make. I see it coming. They're doing all right. Dr. McCassa, I think you had something in regards to goals 4 and 5 that you wanted to discuss.
Yes, and goals 4 and 5 are now getting more in line with state assessment testing and the movement away from summative evaluation. The adjustment we're asking for, if we're going to make the adjustment as far as before now, we were looking at using release STAR tests. And so when we talk about how students arrive in these two campuses and how the scores are low when they first get there, well, this is testing kids on information they've never had. So it can be a confidence breaker. It's in the high stakes realm. And what we're talking about doing, instead of giving a summative exam 3 times a year, is doing it similar to what you just heard, a formative curriculum-based assessment versus a summative-based. I don't know how much you can get out of a summative assessment 3 times to where you can monitor that growth. If you're using your curriculum-based assessments, you can intervene in real time versus half to 3/4 of this curriculum I have not seen. So we're putting before you that we would like to move to using the curriculum-based formative assessment and move away from 3 times a year giving a summative end of course type of assessment. And I know I'm speaking to this point because it's a steering point for me right in the district, but I definitely have tremendous respect for our principals who have STAR testing and would respect it if they felt any differently. But we've had those conversations about just giving a full release test, and that's that high anxiety type testing to where you're not formative, you're not assessing them on a curriculum they've had. These assessments also are already in place and they're already living in our data management systems. This is not a giant shift. This is saying we want to use formative instead of summative assessment to show growth.
So what would that do? So looking at the goals.
And so we would set a baseline, and I would recommend we do set a baseline because we've never done it before. When you set the baseline principles, please jump in at any point you want, but we're going to need to set a baseline. And once we get that baseline, we can start looking at growth and the type of percentage of growth. Is there any comment from any of these principals that have the state assessment what you'd like to see in this shift from, first of all, are you okay with not doing some of the, testing that we talked about?
Absolutely.
I know, looking at the goals, it would not be that where you show growth, I know my voice is messed up, sorry. That you would not show growth through the year, because if you're assessing on a curriculum-based assessment on what they taught, then this should be the goal throughout the whole year. So you're not looking at growing throughout the year, you're looking at reaching the school every single time it says.
So let me follow along. So the main goal is to move along according to the STAR. You're talking about changing the goal progress measures
To
dot 1, dot 2, dot 3 to a more formative.
as we go.
Right.
Versus.
Okay, but the end goal would still be the STAR results, which is academic progress, which is our rating.
Yes, sir. That would be that first page that I showed you. That's the STAR goal.
Yeah.
But the formative piece would be.
I don't care how you measure it or do it,
Yeah.
if you can get these numbers up and academic progress, and you think that that's what is gonna.
What it allows for is anytime intervention for me
Yes.
is the biggest piece. If I'm covering that first unit, that first 6 weeks, let's say, of the test, I can start intervening now because the test was over the material for the first 6 weeks. And so we can circle back at the lesson cycles, we refer to it, and add those interventions in real time versus, hey, let's give them a full gamut. And to me, that's a panic approach.
It really is.
And I just don't see utility for kids testing on things that they haven't had instruction on.
This would also allow you to use STAR redesign infused in that. Are you planning to use the redesign as part of the,
Thank you for that.
yeah,
Thank you for that, because if you did use that release test, it would be.
yeah, you're not getting,
Not only
right,
would be
it's
some
not
of
the
it,
same.
it would be the wrong format.
Yeah.
In addition to being some of it, it would be in the.
So you
format
need to
for which
start
they're not being
preparing
tested moving
For
forward.
that redesign.
And all of the campuses and their instructional coaches and the instructional facilitators have already done the questions, and they are already in DMAC, ready to go for their curriculum-based assessments. So they'll be assessed 2.0.
I know last year, there was a mixture of assessments, there were benchmarks, there were CBAs, so it wasn't really a true picture through the year last year.
And we test our kids to that.
Yeah.
We talk about losing instructional time and not having that instructional time to teach the material or testing, how many hours we're spending doing that, so.
This conversation, when we approve at the end,
It'll all be,
Very good. Yes.
I'm fine with that. If that's.
And it's common for all, it's across the board. It's just using, the only change here is curriculum based versus some of it in STAR testing.
Any other conversation about that?
Great. I think that is a superb plan and anxious to see the results of that. Future meetings. Next on our agenda is to review and possibly revise board and superintendent constraints, and you have copies of that in your folder. Oh, Dr. Mack?
Yeah.
Yes. I know you talked about that a little bit last time.
Yes, so a couple of things with the evaluation, and I know Mark was here, we talked about it last, and we shifted that timeline back a little bit. We talked about the holidays and how that would go, that doesn't require any change in policy or anything, so we have shifted those dates as per that discussion to the final summative superintendent evaluation happening in February, so again, we're pushing that back, so we have time for this, so that was timeline, so we would be coming back with timeline at the next meeting anyway. Today, we're talking about the evaluation form itself. So I put it in the board newsletter. I know there's a couple of things going around there. And then really what you can do tonight is, if you're okay with the form, is approve it, or we can get changes and we'll come back in November. So we're just. Any questions on the form?
This form is the one we're using.
That is the form that is going to get the whole system. Okay.
This one we used last year.
No, that's exact one.
Yeah.
And I
I think
looked
we're
at
trying to get away
the,
from this, because some of it's redundant.
there's some things that are added to it.
Yeah.
We can adjust anything you like. You can mark it up and we'll bring it back. we can discuss now and see what changes.
What was added? These are all the categories we had last year, board relations, community relations, personnel management, fiscal, staff development, professional management. This is exactly what we did last year in January.
So what are you wanting to see? What would you like to see different? Is there a change you'd like to see different? Do we want to go?
I think we struggled with this. Did anybody enjoy doing this one? We have fun with that?
No. We had so many questions about some things that we could not answer.
Yes, I also think part of the problem last year was not the form, but the information that we didn't have to be able to answer the questions appropriately on the form. So I think when we're talking about a timeline, if we're doing this form in February, then in January, before we fill out this form, we need to have a state of the district covering the things that are on this form, so we can know, okay, looking at performance, do we have board relations, keeping us informed, is that type of stuff. I think the information side of the evaluation process last year was our biggest hang-up, because a lot of us sat here and we didn't know what half of this stuff was.
You want the article. that
Yes,
support that.
yes,
The evidence.
the evidence supporting where we land on this, whether it's we're shining or whether we need improvement. We need it all needs to be laid out. And I don't know if that's gonna change anything if we change the form. I think that's changing how it is presented, the process of how it runs to the board, so we can evaluate appropriately.
And I know we talked about putting maybe some progress measures on there, academic performance, stuff that actually has physical data that moves, and so there would be subjective pieces, but objective pieces as well.
Well, we were gonna link it to our.
To our LSU.
And LSU, yes, and that's part of what you're seeing each
Yes.
time as we
Yeah.
look at this agenda. It's the evidence that will support this evaluation.
Because in my opinion, I might think he keeps the board updated on regular things going on, but trustee unions might say, not zero, you can talk to me. Right, so it was a lot of ones and tens and subjective,
Yes.
just opinions, different opinions, and how do we get more concrete? And
And if you want, I mean, we could also look at some of them and I could discuss some of the,
I think that
Yeah.
we missed completely was we had no discussion from
sure.
the
Yes.
city superintendent prior to us all getting this, beating our heads against the wall. for
Yes.
6 hours.
And part of the game in that number 8, because they talk about it. I hear different things going out versus what you heard. And then we were trying to bring that in, no, but I'm not hearing what you're saying, I know what, we're not. We have to be able to say, for sure, that Dr. Impact is out in the community and doing what he's doing. We do see it because we now get those weekly briefs every week.
And that's what you're
Yes,
using as
yes.
your evidence.
Whereas we did not get those things, but yet we evaluate them on those.
Correct. And I think it's more of the process.
Yes.
We're talking about the process, which is what has been discussed for a couple meetings now. Yes, this form, we need to all agree, including Dr. Mack, but we also need to discuss the process, because this isn't just to sit down and evaluate in one night. It's a look back over the year, and I think how Dr. Mack communicates to us through the Friday newsletters, informing us of that type of stuff. I think all of that will then play into, and I do think this process, when we sit down in February, will be very, very different than what it was last February,
And I can
just
elaborate
because of the
On
process.
8, even right now, just a little bit. So when you look at 8, it says directs proactive program internal and external communications. We moved to the SMORE newsletter that you're getting.
Sure,
But
we enjoyed that.
yeah, and so that's for the board, and campuses, I think you're getting those as well. And we're gonna add the district SMORE newsletter as well, and the analytics of that. I don't know if I had that talk with you all, I had a talk with the executive committee. We can see who's getting them, and who's reading them, and measure effectiveness. So that's something I would want to bring to you, and I'd be proud to bring you to say, look, not only are we have new mechanisms for communicating with the community, but we're able to measure it. here's the percentage of our families that are receiving this message. Here's the percentage of our families that are, they're opening it, et cetera. And then on the next one, establishes mechanisms for community and business involvement in schools and encouraging participation. A couple of things there. With that one, what would I bring to you there is our CTE advisory board meeting where we're going to match our, and it sounds terrible that I'm saying we're gonna, it just hasn't come around yet. It's not time to do the CTE advisory board. I'm going to go ahead and uncork this one. She's in the room and deserves some accolades. Lee Arlett has mentioned opening up a ambassadors program for the district where we bring ambassadors in and we enfranchise them and we teach them about finance. We teach them about discipline. We teach them about special education. Because in communicating with the public, half the battle is understanding the constraints that districts have. And so I thought that was a great idea that we have on the 9th, we're looking at bringing in leaders from the church's clergy. And so so those are the types of evidence I would bring on. So if those things aren't matching, then we change it up. And the last one is works with other governmental entities and community organizations to meet the needs of students. So again, now we're talking about CTE, we're talking about internships, we're talking about mentor program, entrepreneur program we talked about today. Though that's specific evidence that would bring that, here's what we're doing with the community. Like these are the partnerships. This is the members and sign-in sheets of our advisory board. This is our the number of eligibility presentations we've done. We did Rotary. I'd love for you guys to do Alliance with me if we could get some folks, but clergy, LSG for clergy. So I think measurables would be there. It's more of what would you like to see? You know, what would you like to see that we'll bring it?
So are you comfortable with this as it is written?
I read
This
it
is
through.
your evaluation.
Yeah, I read it through all the way, questioning what would I bring? That was my, what am I, because I'm not just going to show up. It's going to be, you know, it's going to be, here's the things we're proud of that we did this year. And so I do feel that I could bring evidence for all areas. And there may be, of course, areas I need to grow in. That's part of the process is to grow as well. I feel good about it. And the main thing is it's true school. And so I want to make sure that it's the measurables that you guys want that's effective. But again, we're already tied into LSG, and you can see there with the academic performance come February. We just look at this timeline we just saw. What will we have in February? We'll have some middle of the year data. We'll have some very fresh data, and so you'll get to see the progress. And so yeah, I think formatively we would have data, and then we get into. Remember we talked about jumping into the cycle. Now we're in the cycle, so in February, let's say, you will have that formative data. We just made a big shift tonight. But when you come back around to the next year with the first full year on the job, you know, you've got all your academic reports that come out on the summative side. And so I think there's a lot of accountability there, which is awesome. And but again, if there's any, I did read through all of them to ask myself what evidence I could bring. So if you have any of them that you would say, how would you do this at this time? I would be glad to entertain those. If there's any particular, you're like, well, we struggled with this one last year, what would you bring us? I'd certainly be willing to do that.
Yeah, Jordan just did the performance. What y'all are doing to recruit, reject.
Yes.
Just, that was awesome. So I'm walking on. I'm walking on. But I want to hear that this man that's sitting behind me in this suit, like you, that man, right there.
Yes, ma'am.
That man,
Yes.
yes. I need you to get on him and have him to get his folks to come out and communicate with you. But see, you're gonna drive, and what we're driving is the people that we really don't need to hear from. I need those underserved people that's not showing up at Marissa's campus. Those people that's not showing up for her. Put him to work. He does more than
He's
just
already written
being
the
a
letter.
cop. He
He's
does
already
more
written the
than just
letter.
being a cop. So he has pulled in the community that he can really help you in that area where we need to draw those folks that's not showing up to get what's done for our kids. So get out your needs
For some,
and do.
Priscilla, this is a great segue in. On November 9th, I know, as Dr. Mack has mentioned, Chief has helped instrumentally in that, and bringing leaders across the community and to have lunch and to pull people in. And so I think that that's the type of thing that we're moving towards. And instead of
completely walking off, I'm just gonna put one of the last three.
All right.
So we're on the path to bringing in all the people to ensure that we are pulling together the community.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And I have not gotten around to all schools because I've been huffing to make it over there to Roberts. I've been huffing to get over there. But she is putting in people, y'all. I mean, I sit in a total awe when I go over there and I'm like, oh, I didn't need to see that face. I'm glad you're showing up. And Matt, you're doing it. Girl, you need some rest. I don't know how in the world you're doing, but you need some rest and get out of all the pockets. I cannot do all those dress ups and all of that cutesy stuff. But it's worth it. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I came in and I like this, but I like to come back for more and more.
Well, and I think that's the portion of the process of getting to that point of sitting down to be able to fill this out. We will have gone through all of this information and he will have gone over what he's doing and what his team is doing to ensure that we're making progress and we're leading forward. So I think that that was the portion of the evaluation process that was missing.
If you would get that, so there would be the state of the district, where we would have a very fast-paced discussion of where we are, then you would get the instrument. And then at that time, you can tell me, I've got the instrument, I want you to know some of the things I'm looking for. Because then I formulate a solution plan based on that presentation, and your feedback. And we come back in February, address it.
When you do it, it works. Because
Yeah.
it was 3 years ago, we did that. We had state of the address, we had this evaluation form, we gave it out. All the information was presented, we filled it out, it all matched, and last year we didn't get the state of the address.
Correct.
We got one, but it was everything that wasn't on here, it was not, it didn't match.
Right. So I
But
think
you're
it's-
getting the state of address really
That's all him.
informatively
That's
every
all.
meeting,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm hearing that he's very intentional
Yeah.
with getting communications to you on a weekly basis. So you're actually doing a formative process, just like we've heard from the
Yes.
principals earlier. That's happening in regards to this evaluation as well. And that state of the address will be his summative
Yeah.
evidence that he's providing to you, but you should be seeing this played out all along. As an outsider here, I'm seeing it playing out in every single one of these meetings,
And
so.
Dr. Mack's point, his presentation is gonna be PowerPoint slide. How are we doing this?
Yeah.
PowerPoint slide B2, next PowerPoint slide, and he's just gonna tell us how he's doing a great job on all of these, and we're gonna agree with it. If he's doing it, we'll see it, which is,
Right.
yeah, so if you're good with this, I'm good with this. This is what you want to evaluate you on?
I think it's comprehensive, high accountability, and that's what I appreciate, it's high accountability over a large volume of things that are gonna make us successful. Whatever I need to grow in, I'll grow.
Perfect. All right.
Awesome.
Sounds great.
All right, now we go to review and revise board and constraints. Did you have a chance to look over those?
So I brought this up because knowing that this was written with a different person sitting in this seat, I felt it was important to go back and look. They may be exactly the same of where we stand as a board looking at superintendent constraints and looking at board constraints. But I felt that we needed to look at them, have a discussion. If we're good with it, let's move forward. If we don't want anything to change on these constraints, let's move forward. But in the light of having a new person in our superintendency seat, I kind of thought we owed him to look at these things and go over it and have a discussion. So with that said, have you looked at them, number one? Number two, are there any that you think we need to have a full out discussion on and possibly change or tweak?
The only thing that is always bothered me was the 3-4-4. You know, I don't think that we need to, like we did with our last superintendent, Mr. Checkup, did you go to Jerry? Well, yeah, you went and you just stood in the door and said, hey, I'm here. I know that this is happening now, but I don't want us to, he's busy. And I don't want him to be held accountable if he cannot make 4 times each month because he's having another business in the school district. What he's doing now is running a race. And I want him to be able to do that finish line and not fall when he gets at the thing. So I think sometimes we have to, and I know not sometimes, all the time, that we have to trust him to do what he needs to do when he needs to do it without those things. So Dr. Mack, that is 4 times each month to every campus, making sure that you spend quality time and not just walk into the door and waving or walking down one hallway for somebody to see you and say, oh, what you got? He was on a camp secret. Well, what did he do? Oh, he walked to the door. I want your visits there to mean something. Am I making sense? I don't want him to be just, yeah, he wait. I want, if she has a concern, that he can actually do one of those visits, sit and talk to him.
So what are you recommending?
Yes, and let's let him do it, but not tie him down to that.
Okay, so do we have to have
Do we
four
have to have
constraints?
that? Do we have to have that?
Do we have to have 4 constraints is the question?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we can get rid of that constraint if we agreed upon that as a board. And as Dr. Mack said, yeah, I don't
Is
need it.
that, but let me hear from you, is that too much for every campus to say that you can pay?
Yes.
I think
I think so. I think that's a really heavy ask, and I'm glad you brought it up. I've already heard evidence tonight that he is meeting with instructional teams and things, which I believe is your point, is you want him doing the important thing, not just showing up to be the figurehead. He's trying to make a difference and an impact in this district, and that's what's happening. So you want to allow him to continue to do that, is what I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, what do you feel like would be a reasonable number to make that kind of impact in our district as far as your schedule?
And the first thing I did when I read this, I was like, I wanted to be objective. You know, I was like, I have a QR code at each campus. That's the level that I want. But at the same time, I do think there should be some flexibility because I feel that my availability with principals, even on their campus, or what I've instituted now is I have 2 principals meetings per month in addition to campus visits. So that's time with them, but it's time with them away from their campus. So they can have some time with me and not be bothered. So one of those meetings is with elementary principals. The second meeting is with all principals. Then the next month, it'll be secondary principals and all principals. So I think that is a part of that time, not necessarily on the campus, which I'm in favor of. I'm in favor of how much. It doesn't matter. I scheduled that. You heard me talk about the breakthrough coach. I scheduled my time on the campus. It's scheduled. Now, at that time, you may get some feedback though. You could get some feedback. Like I wanted to see Dr. Mack at 10 o'clock and he said he's not seeing me till 11 because he's committed to campuses. But that is the level of commitment I have to campuses. I'd like to keep that to where that's it. Now, as far as a number, you know, I'd like a measurable there as far as, you know, some other options. Because one of the other things I highlighted in there was like during an activity or lunchtime. I want to go for a lot of other things.
Right.
And so maybe just more in general of campus visibility, also being available to principals and not having them out there on their own, available to them if they need to meet with me at district. So even if you wanted to say, get into semantics of what a campus visit is versus a campus leader visit, I don't know.
I'm fine scrapping it. This constraint was in response to a culture of the eagle has landed. When the superintendent came, somebody was in trouble. And we don't have that now. I've seen you at each campus twice this month already alone because we did two parent nights at Tenny Homes. You know, we had the thing at the high school last night. We've been at Lenny Roberts doing stuff. So if we want to scrap this and you just want to say, I'm going to be visible and available to my superintendents, then that's fine. It's something we can put back in later that ever becomes an issue.
Is
that I
it
don't-
addressed
it's not
in
your
the
personality.
evaluation?
This is
Is it?
Yeah.
You should
So
see it
you're
on this.
addressing
Right.
it there.
Right.
You're addressing it. there.
I'm fine scrapping it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, and it's important to, so it needs to be in my newsletters.
Right.
And I can share it there. If you're not seeing anything in the newsletter, that means I wasn't there.
Right.
I need to be able to, prove it.
Is everyone okay with scrapping constraint three? Okay, so that one's scratched. Any other ones, 1, 2, or 4?
Is 2 achievable?
The 94% by June. I think we're at 93, I want to say 90, as a district, we're at 93 right now.
Right.
Now typically that does tail off, but we just hit the ground running, we have to put on more strategies, basically, at least in my efforts. So, we're at about 93 right now, so this is a tangible yes.
Yes, I was gonna say that, but that's a good one. We usually say in 93, sometimes we hit the 94, but I think that you can do that.
Yeah, I want 95, that's really my personal goal, is 95. But, where we are right now, I think 94 is definitely reasonable.
I would like to look at, number 1, the superintendent shall not fail to participate in a board team building activity attended by 100% of the team of 8.
Guess what? I like y'all, so you can take that, we can do that. I'm gonna show.
Well, this is not for the board, this is the
I'll move that.
superintendent. So we're
Yeah.
talking, so this is,
But
Who wrote that?
it doesn't make sense to me because it's gonna be at our team of 8 or it's part of what we have to do.
Yeah.
What I would
Yeah,
like
I'm
to
talking on the
see,
board.
what I would like to see is if we're going to keep something of that nature, to team, and y'all may get mad at me, but that's okay. Team of 8 training is an easy check to get 100%. SLI, Region 3, board spring training is not as easy, and I think that if we're gonna step it up a notch, and we're asking the staff and for Dr. Mack to get there and for students to step it up, we have got to make a commitment across this table to step it up and not just take the easy way out and do a team of 8 where they come to us at a board meeting, but to do an SLI, to go to a Region 3 and to plan it out. And we may not get there this year, but I think that it is something that we as a board need to say, yes, we want to do that because it's what's gonna be best for our school district. And it's what's gonna be best for us sitting here working together to lead the ship and move the ship forward.
I agree. I
So
agree.
that's my 2 cents on that. Any conversation?
On the ones that I've been to in the past, when you see a school board that their whole team is there, it's highly
It's
impressive.
impressive.
And it also, for members of the board, we only see what we see here, but when you go to these conferences, you see the boards that are running on.
Yeah.
It's highly effective boards, and you don't know what you don't know.
Yes. Yes, and I will say Felix and I this past summer went to SLI in San Antonio. And there were things there that I thought, wow, this is the type of stuff that we need to be able to bring back to our district.
Yeah, Jeff's on the GTs was like.
That's not true.
Seeing it, it gave us time to bond and get to know her a little bit more too.
Yeah.
For me, I've been around her once or twice before, but I mean, it's a good time to get to know each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's cool too, because like I went to one of those sessions where the board of the year was presenting, and you honestly could not tell who the superintendent was when you're listening to them talk.
Yeah.
It was cool.
It's pretty.
We got close. We had 7 out of 8
So,
our first year.
is everyone in agreement with with striking 100% to do not just a team of 8 here in this district, but to do an SLI or a Region 3, the spring board conference?
So SLI is tough because,
It's Father's Day weekend.
and I have a company the 3rd weekend of June, so.
Right.
Yeah, but the other one, what everybody else's constraints are, but I think if we all look at our calendars ahead of time and determine, hey, that's plausible, then yeah. I think so.
So how about I come back in November and see if, I don't know if Region 3 has their dates yet.
I don't know,
on
but I'll
that.
find out and send it.
And see if we can get some dates out to see if one of those, and there's also an SLI. The majority of our area goes to San Antonio, just because I think it's closer than going to Fort Worth, but there's also SLI, another weekend that they offer in Fort Worth. I think it is the next weekend, so it would be, I don't know, somewhere at the end of June, beginning of July. Is that
Next.
next week? So I will bring that back, I will commit to bring those dates back to y'all in October board meeting, so we can get moving on that. The next weekend, yeah. So are there any other board constraints
Okay, let's look at four.
at board? The superintendent shall not allow the effective faculty and staff turnover rate to exceed 15%.
He's on it.
Yeah, I think we are on it, we are on the right track.
We're gonna achieve it. Yeah.
But,
I don't, are you wanting to get rid of it? Or what is your, are you wanting to tweak it? What's your request?
it says the superintendent shall not allow. How can you stop?
Well, the qualifier is effective, you know, so you want to make sure you're thinking in those terms. Achieving effective.
Because it has a word effective.
Yeah,
How do you
Because we
quantify
get,
that?
you know, we just get a number of terms.
right.
And then I assume that the word effective is targeting something. I just need clarification on how we effective versus general turnover. Either or, we did it all. It's fine. It's just effective what I wasn't sure about.
It's hard to measure.
It's real hard to
Right.
read.
Well, principals do evaluations on the teachers, so there is some quantifiable data there.
There was a lot of conversation.
Yeah,
There was a
okay,
lot.
so if there's like a non-renewal, we've had that data, we
Sure.
just track that from each
And
other.
there was a lot of, from what we understood. So,
Okay, no, I got it, yeah, that explains it, so that means that, you know, we're not losing people that we want back, and the principals want back, these are taken out of the numerator of this, if they were not effective. We're not about that.
And the challenge was, don't put data on what effective is. Because then you're gonna open up a whole,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
who's effective, who's not effective. You know, I wanna know, am I effective? If I leave, am I an effective one? But yeah, I think it's not rules. Transfer to other districts, teachers that wanted to stay but are leaving for some other reason other than family moves or something. With a lot of that.
So
We definitely figure out how we can keep our charity principal for at least 3 years.
Ms. Robinson, I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Get that on record?
I need to decide something.
So are there any other conversations that need to happen around the superintendent before we move over the board? Okay, so board constraints, are there any that we feel need to be taken out, changed, tweaked?
No, I mean, I think all of these align with LSG.
Anybody? All right. Perfect.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your progress for community, your goals. How's that going?
I think it's going well. We have presented to Rotary. We have presented to parents at Lenny Roberts. We have a meeting set up on November 9th to present to spiritual leaders from the whole community coming in. Am I missing something? We had, oh, we did. So we have been presenting over the time and kind of took advantage of parents coming in and for Meet the Teacher and parent nights at the beginning of the school year.
If you've never presented in the movie theater.
that's the worst for me, that's very awesome.
One of the things that we brought tonight was the posters, the frame posters, so that was going to be displayed as well to help spread the message. And so.
Really excited
Daniel
about
knows where
November
those are.
9th, what Chief is leading the way.
Yeah,
And
that's,
inviting folks and then following up, if we're gonna teach people about the ambassador program, LSG's, that's what we do. in addition to the discipline and special education funding, but also student outcomes from the LSG would be great for the ambassador program. I'm excited about that. I hope, just to franchise folks to join us in this effort and to be knowledgeable and to speak to, this is how it works.
Let me tell you something. We talked about that in that conspiracy, we brought in that sort of stuff. That's one of my regrets about is we offered those programs and they did work, but it was hard for young. So if you can do a good of mountain, getting it out and promoting it and bringing those kinds of things back into the district, I think it would be awesome. That is something that is needed. That is something that they need. I think that we need to think about it. We have to do heritage classes. Yes, ma'am, that would definitely help at our lower primary schools. We have to be able to bring people in, talk to these kids on that, and somehow reach our community and work to let's work together. It's not everybody want to own a little bit of this and a little bit of that. If we can make them buy into the fact that we have programs already in place, it is no need for someone else to go out there and reinvent or whatever you call that word. You have Stella over there that is working her butt off to make these different programs work. We need to be more of a voice to try to get people to come in and stop separating ourselves from what we are presenting here. We have what we need. We have what we need to give to our kids. We need our community to buy into those things. So many people think that we don't have those programs. Yes, we do. We have those programs. Evidence is when you see them tonight show up and these kids are passing those tests, those AP tests, those kids that enrolled in our CTE program. We have to make people that look like me know that those programs are in.
How was that publicized?
Okay, I know we do a lot.
These celebrations
Yes.
are
They
amazing.
are amazing.
So putting these pictures out on social media are ways to highlight those great things you're talking
And
about.
I will look at communication person. You are not getting the recognition that you're needed, but I see your posts on social media. I see what you're doing, and I'm going to tell you, you keep pushing it, and every time you push it, I will promote it, I will share it. I will make people understand that this is important to all of us, not just some of us.
Right.
So thank you for that. You are working with your body. And I like rocking because everybody like, who's that pretty girl? Everyone knows who I am. Or what program does we represent? Who is that pretty girl? Yeah, so we all
Those are great tools for spreading that
Yes.
message. It's
And I think,
celebration.
right, I think what I took away from going to present at Rotary, or there were some people there that had no idea what we do. And so being able to get in front of groups of that nature, to go present to LSG, go to present the LSG stuff and have authentic discussion and questions and back and forth. I think it's gonna do nothing but continue to share what we're doing in this district with our community to let them know, look, what we do offer is pretty amazing. And we are really doing amazing things in Bay City within the school district. And it happens. And I continue to hear the conversation past that Rotary meeting of what we're doing. Did you know they were doing that? Yeah, we did. So it's just getting the word out. And I think where the train is moving in that direction. And so we just need to keep moving with it.
All right.
We have a chamber mix on Thursday.
So sounds like there's a lot
Thursday.
going on with that and getting the message out, and that you're right. That's what needs to be. Okay, next month, in the November meeting, you'll be looking at goals 4 and 5, and we'll be having a discussion around those. And then the last thing that I had is Morris Lyon, the executive director at Region 3, is actually doing a study for LSG and gathering data. So he's I think had talked to you, Dr. McCaskill already, I've lost a folder. He's asking that each of you participate in this survey, and we're gathering it from all of our LSU districts, and the state is going to look at this data and continue to see how this process is impacting districts. So we ask that y'all participate in that.
Great, thank you.
And if you can make sure you bring those back, or if you want to go now, I can wait for them, whatever process you want to use.
So
It shouldn't take long, it's
it's
just a.
15 questions. There is what we refer to as an IRB, is just our consent. So consent, 15 questions. So I'll go on that out right now.
Do y'all care if we do it now? Or do you want to take it and bring it, drop it back by before the end of the week, or? Is that okay with everybody? Can everybody get it back to the office? And if you can't, I'm happy to come pick it up. Or you can leave it on my front porch and I can turn it in for you.
Oh, something that each board.
Yes.
Yes,
One
if
of them.
each individual board member.
Pass it on, so you have it.
Yeah, well, Mark has to bring it back in.
That's right.
So let's just bring it back,
Okay,
when you need it back by.
just when you're finished.
Okay, so if we can maybe have them back to the admin office by Friday, is that unreasonable?
No, whatever, and then they will just.
Yes, there will.
And then we can, yes, ma'am. Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm assuming if we don't put our name on it, it's anonymous, or we put our name on the survey?
It's anonymous, you
Okay.
sign that, but
Got it.
at some point, he will ask possibly to interview some of the board members around, just to get personal, great anecdotes, as part of it.
Great.
I assume. So
Yeah, yeah.
It's selected.
All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
for Great meeting.
One more question before we got to Matt. I see some places here from our assistant administrators. Is it a time that's set aside for you to meet and talk with them? Let's see the people that may move up, and I think they need to hear what our principals are doing. That was one thing that I enjoyed about being an assistant, is that they set up a time for the assistants to sit with the superintendent and be trained. These young ladies are going to move us one day, and we don't want them to be caught off guard. So can we somehow put in one school meeting for every student or whatever that sometimes skip is there to share?
So they get it when they want to or not?
Yeah, they want to.
No,
We already know it, okay.
but let me give some examples, because that's important, examples, and when I meet with executive committee, which pretty much fills up that side over there. So I have principal meetings twice, then I have, cabinet meetings once a week, so that's 4 times a month, that's 4 of, Mr. Townsend, and it's, I believe on the website, Mr. Townsend's in that group, Jordan's in that group, Rick is in that group of the cabinet, then the executive committee is everyone there and more. And so today was executive committee, so that's every week, so that's 4 times a month. And for instance, today I told him, I know you don't think you need to know this, but we talked today about Rick's department in food service, and that food service is not food service. Food service is academically, not academically, socioeconomically disadvantaged students, which speaks to the curriculum side. We talked about how we generate state comp ed dollars. And so that may not be of the most interest of my PR department, but they had to sit through it today, because I wanted to know, I want everyone, you don't know what your next step is. I thought I was going to be a science teacher, I hope I really did. I really did. And so literally they get it, and they don't, like, they probably testify, they get some stuff they don't want, but I love their ideas, and we get everyone on board, and I know Scott visited with y'all earlier, but Scott's in those meetings, he joins us, and that side over there is pretty full. And we've done nothing but expanded this year. I think we've expanded 2 or 3 times to bring more people in. You're getting your chiefs, you're getting your directors, Dean's department is in that meeting. And so that's a great question. So that's another piece of evidence I could bring as far as who is being developed, because that's professional development and development. No one knows where they're going to end up. It's best to learn as much as you can.
She never, but that was LSU talk. We'll count in a minute.
Great, thank you. Hello, hello, on to the next, to report on bilingual status.
Well, first of all, sorry to disappoint, but I'm not Susie. I'm Bobby. Selena Garcia with Bay City ISD.
Glad to have you, thank you.
And I'm passing this out. If you'll please replace the first page of my report with this one. I gathered data from lots of different sources, and it took me a few days to get everything to match. All right, so this report is required every year for the previous year. Last year, it was Susie Abenabi that presented this from Region 4. And what had happened was for the previous 2 years during the COVID and then coming back to virtual, the district had asked for a self-imposed self-assessment. And so last year during that report, one of the items that was suggested was that we hire a bilingual instructional coach. And if you don't know Miss Epi, this is Epi Gomez, and she is our bilingual instructional coach. And slight little setback, right now she is teaching at Tinny Homes, but as soon as we're able to fill that position, she'll be back on the ground running to be that instructional coach on the campuses. So I just want to throw that little tidbit in there before we get started. So here you can see what our numbers look like for the past 5 years. And it's ironic that that change is the exact same number. So total student enrollment has gone down by 59 students over the past 5 years, but it has gone up for our emergent bilinguals in that area. And you can see across the 5 years, we're up almost 2%. I did find a report from 17-18, and back then we were around 12%. So we have gone up quite a bit in the past 8 years. This next part is just looking at the breakdown of this group. So the students that are in bilingual, we are required to have bilingual classes. That means that we have 20 or more students per grade level that qualify. So with that being said, we must have a bilingual program at our 3 elementary campuses. At our secondary campuses, we have an ESL program. We do have a significant number of denials, and on that, sometimes parents feel like they're teaching Spanish at home and they want their kids at school to be in English classes, and therefore they have that denial. It's almost a misconception about what that is. So we do have those denials. On the immigrant line, those are our students that this is their first year in a school in the United States.
What do we do for the parent denials? Do we try to go back and educate them that what ESL truly is and how that can help them if they're at that level where we're doing ESL versus in the bilingual classroom? What does that process look like?
That's what it looks like.
Okay.
And for right now, at those elementary campuses, we have a bilingual program, and that misperception that Spanish is spoken 100% of the time, and it's not. It's, at the discretion, we want to move along and drop the Spanish as much as we can. But like I say, for the most part, it's a misperception, but it is cost to parents to see if they can, allow us to have their child in the program. Because at the end of the day, even if they're not getting the services as an ESL or bilingual student, they're still going to take the TOPAS, which is the state test that reports on their proficiency every year. So the parents are denying the services, but then we still give them the test and look at the results to see what type of progress they're making.
And many times the parents are, they don't understand that. They think that because they deny their children are not going to be tested. And that is just a misconception and lack of education. So many times, depending on the principals and the classroom teachers, you can have those conferences with the parents and explain the program to them. And many times they're like, okay, it kind of opens their eyes to what the expectation is, and knowing that their students are going to be educated in every way, just like the native speakers. And so they give them comfort to know that they are getting every benefit, just like the others.
Moving right along, I just included a little bit of information about the TOPAS. It tests 4 different domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
And then I included some information about the reclassification criteria. And I included this because this is really tough. And this is one that is very difficult for me because you can see that not only do our students have to pass STAR, they also have to score advanced high in each of the domains, listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And I'll tell you that every year we have students that pass STAR, but we're not able to reclassify them because they didn't score advanced high in all 4 of the domains, especially the speaking domain. And so the kids are wearing a headset with a little mic and they've got to answer questions. And for some of the grade levels, it's even about the length of their question. They must speak for 90 seconds or more. And for these students that are trying to process it, they're trying to translate that in their head and they need that processing time, it's very difficult for that. And when we get to our TELPAS results, I'll show you a couple of highlights on there. This next part, I just took our STAR results for the past 2 years, and then I looked to see how our emergent bilinguals did. I'm specifically going to look at the spring of 22. You can see that our 3rd and 4th graders made lots of progress. The ones that I highlighted are where our emergent bilinguals scored higher than the total district. So for ELAR in 3rd grade was really good in 4th grade as well. STAR Math, you can see there again, the ones that I highlighted, those are the ones where our emergent bilinguals were higher than the all population. And then again with the STAR EOCs. Any questions so far?
They seem to keep up in 3rd, 4th grade. Is there a difference? Is it the level of academics as it progresses that emergent bilinguals tend to maybe fall behind, or?
I haven't been able to put my finger on that. Well, let's look at this TELPAS for a minute. And on this, I looked at, this was I believe maybe the last page. Looking at this, you can see what I did was I highlighted the zeros. Now, I didn't highlight any zeros in kindergarten because our kindergarten students are not eligible to be reclassified, but all of our other grade levels are. And you can see on the speaking, all of those zeros, that means the entire grade level for 3rd and beyond. If they pass STAR, they were not eligible to be reclassified. So if you look at spring of 22, we were not able to classify any 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, or 11th grader because we had zeros in that column, and that's the speaking column. And it's the only area that we have zeros on. And so these are the types of things that we train the teachers on to do things in class, like turn and talk. You know, the teachers may present something for 15 minutes, and then they want the groups to turn and talk to each other to give the kids that practice for speaking, because what happens a lot of times is they're receiving their instruction in English and they will respond to the teacher in English, but once they get to the cafeteria, to the playground, they're speaking Spanish with their peers. You know, or you look at those kiddos that they're the oldest in the family, everybody at home speaks Spanish, the only time they speak English is at school. And then they go back home and everything is back to Spanish. And it's a little different if you've got the 3rd one in line in birth order. You know, now they've got big brother and sister at home speaking Spanish as well. So the dynamics of all of it is just complicated depending on where they're at. But it's just those little strategies that we do in the classroom that will help our students, giving them more opportunities to have that time to talk to their students and peers. And the state has done better with practice tests because this is certainly an area that our kids can use and all of this practice. I was at the state training last week, and there are a few other avenues that we can use for our students practicing the TELPAS so that we can do better on that. On that first sheet, you can see that our reclassification numbers are in the single digits. And for a district this size, we should be doing much better than that. But again, it's very difficult to reclassify for those students that do pass STAR, but then it was a hiccup on speaking, they didn't get advanced high, and now they can't be reclassified. And that's our goal, for them to pass STAR. So that reclassification criteria is very tough for our students.
I believe that moving forward, just the question you just asked, moving forward, in the lower elementary grade levels, you usually have a lot of social conversation and a turn and talk, and you have these small group activities, continuously, large group reading and small groups. And moving forward, the plan will be to try to get those teachers, the upper grade level teachers, to use some of the similar strategies that are being used in the lower elementary grade levels. And in the process, also getting some more training for them. And just modeling, stepping into the classroom and modeling those things and providing those strategies to the teachers.
And Effie has been a volleyball teacher for the district for about
over 27 years.
So she's been doing that. The other thing that I just want to mention as far as a summary of it is we do have lots of teachers that are ESL certified. We are lacking teachers that are bilingual certified, and those two certifications are very different. And so currently we have one kinder bilingual teacher, one in first, second, third, and fourth. We should have 2 per grade level, at least 2. And so we are working on a bilingual exception to turn in for that. And then we also are working on a ESL waiver because we do not have all of our teachers in core classes ESL certified at the junior high and the high school. They're working on that. They've been very diligent about that. I know there were a group that went to Region 3 last week for a test prep class, and they're getting signed up to take that test, and hopefully, even if it's just 4 more teachers that are ESL certified by Christmas, it's better than none. And the district does reimburse once they pass their test, the cost of the test, so we do that. And also, I know the principals have been very good about if it's a test during the week, they use that as a professional development day. Anything we can do to encourage them to get the test prep, get tested, get certified, and get all of that in. And so that will help us. The state looks at what our efforts are in getting our teachers certified, whether it's bilingual or ESL. And so these are the types of things that we will mention in our exception and waiver. So it's a 2-part thing, and we do both of it because we need more bilingual certified teachers and we need more ESL certified teachers.
Have you noticed, especially with Region 4, looked at Region 4, the Region 4 offers the ESL certification. And you can go all day Saturday. You come out Saturday evening, you have a certification. Okay, when you talk about bilingual teachers and ESL teachers, we will hire ESL teachers versus bilingual. The United States says we have to follow. So if I'm ESL certified, what good does it do you to have that certification and not speak your Spanish?
So basically, that certification means that you have been trained with different strategies to implement with the students in your classroom. Because you're exactly right. When I look at this list, I've got a list here of, the 3 elementary campuses, and this, just from a distance, you can see there's about 35 names on that list, and only 5 of those people are bilingual certified. So that's why the certification is so different. But back to your question, the ESL certification is more about knowing strategies to implement for students. And I do want to add that everything that was mentioned for LSG, all of those strategies, the walkthroughs, everything that the principals are doing on their campuses, it helps all students. It helps our special education students, our emergent bilingual students. So I just feel like all of that is interconnected. So as they're going through all those strategies and working on Tier 1 instruction, it's going to help every group of students. But Ms. Robinson, you're exactly right. Typically, ESL certified teachers do not speak Spanish, but it's more so about the strategies.
We have 2 on campus, and they have to go and get the teacher to interpret what I'm saying about. Well, why did you take that class if you don't know the language? But I know a lot of people chasing the money, and they go after that because they know we're desperate in the school district for those teachers. I just wanted to know.
Any questions?
Thank you. Right. Moving on to the approval of our consent agenda. Approval of minutes of our previous meeting, special board meeting on September 28th, and our regular board meeting on September 12th. Approval of the interlocal agreement between Flashes ISD and Bay City ISD. approval of the additional T-test appraisers, the possible action on amendment 2, chapter 313, agreement number 1483 with Rome America LLC, approval of the August 22 financial report, approval of September 22 financial report, and approval of the special revenue funds. Is there anything on that agenda that anyone would like to remove for special consideration? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion on the floor?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
All right, there's been a motion made. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes 6-0. All right, and last but not least, adjournment. Is there a motion to be made?
Make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. Thank you.